Fleet Commander Ilara Chen stood at the observation deck of the TSS Horizon, Earth's flagship and the pride of the Terran Defense Force. Her dark eyes scanned the vast expanse of stars before her, each one representing a potential future for humanity. After 2 centuries of interstellar expansion, humans had established colonies across 57 star systems, creating a network of thriving worlds united under the Terran Confederation. "Commander, you should see this," called Lieutenant Marcus Wells, his voice cutting through her contemplation. She turned to see him hovering over a holographic display, his brow furrowed in concentration. "What am I looking at, Lieutenant?" she asked, moving to his side. "Anomalous energy readings from the Epsilon Eridani boundary. Nothing we've ever encountered before." Wells manipulated the display, expanding the visual representation of the readings. "It started 3 days ago and has been growing exponentially." Chen studied the data, her military training immediately assessing potential threats. The energy signature pulsed with an unnatural rhythm, like a heartbeat from the void itself. "Alert Science Division. I want Dr. Nakamura's team on this immediately." Within hours, the Horizon Science Bay had transformed into a hive of activity. Dr. Kaido Nakamura, the ship's chief physicist and one of humanity's brightest minds, had assembled a team to analyze the phenomenon. "It's a dimensional rift," Nakamura explained, his hands dancing across multiple holographic interfaces. "Something is pushing through from elsewhere." "Another universe?" Chen asked. "More like another reality altogether," Nakamura replied. "The quantum signatures suggest a dimension with fundamentally different physical laws. Whatever's coming through has found a way to translate its existence into our reality." Chen's comm unit chimed, drawing her attention. "Commander, we're detecting objects emerging from the anomaly," reported Captain Zhao from the bridge. "Hundreds of them. No, thousands." "On my way," Chen responded, already moving toward the door. "Dr. Nakamura with me." By the time they reached the bridge, the situation had evolved rapidly. The main view screen displayed a swarm of objects, ships presumably, emerging from what appeared to be a tear in the fabric of space itself. The vessels were unlike anything humans had ever constructed, their geometries defying conventional engineering principles. They seemed to exist partially out of phase with reality, their edges blurring and shifting like mirages. "Open a channel," Chen ordered, her voice steadied despite the knot forming in her stomach. "All frequencies, all languages in our database." For several tense minutes, silence reigned on the bridge as communications officers attempted to establish contact. Just as Chen was about to order a strategic withdrawal, the view screen flickered, and a figure appeared. The being was humanoid in general shape, but that's where the similarities ended. Its skin, if it could be called that, was a shifting tapestry of darkness and light, like the surface of a black hole condensed into corporeal form. Where a face should have been, there was only a geometric pattern of glowing points that rearranged themselves constantly. "We are the Voidborn," the being spoke, its voice resonating directly in the minds of everyone on the bridge. "Your reality is flawed, imperfect. It will be corrected." Chen stepped forward. "This is Fleet Commander Ilara Chen of the Terran Confederation. We welcome peaceful contact with new civilizations. May we establish diplomatic relations." The geometric patterns on the Voidborn's face shifted rapidly. "Diplomacy is irrelevant. Your universe exists in error. The multi-dimensional constant must be restored." Dr. Nakamura whispered to Chen. "They're talking about fundamental physics. They see our universe as wrong somehow." Chen tried again. "We don't understand your purpose here, but we're willing to learn. Perhaps we can find common ground." "There is no common ground between correct and incorrect states of existence," the Voidborn replied. "Your species has 28 of your rotations to evacuate this dimensional plane. Those who remain will be corrected." Before Chen could respond, the communication ended. The view screen returned to showing the growing swarm of Voidborn vessels. "Did it just tell us to evacuate our universe?" Captain Zhao asked incredulously. "That's exactly what it said," Nakamura confirmed, his face pale. They perceive our entire reality as a mistake to be fixed. Chen's mind raced through the implications. Evacuate to where? And how do you evacuate trillions of beings from reality itself? She turned to her communications officer. Contact Terran Command immediately. Priority Alpha. Then get me a secure channel to every colonial governor and Earth's Security Council. Within 6 hours, humanity's leaders had been briefed on the situation. The response was unanimous. Evacuation was impossible, surrender unthinkable. Humanity would stand its ground. They're mobilizing their entire fleet. Admiral Katri of Terran Command informed Chen during an emergency council meeting. All 20,000 ships. They'll be at your position in 18 days. Chen nodded grimly. That gives us time to prepare. The Voidborn gave us 28 days. Perhaps they're confident in their superiority. Or they're calling in reinforcements, suggested General Okafor from Mars Colony. Our long-range sensors are detecting more rifts opening throughout the sector. Dr. Nakamura, who had been granted emergency access to the council meeting, spoke up. We need to understand their technology. If they can cross dimensions, they're operating on principles we've only theorized about. I'm authorizing unrestricted research priorities, declared President Alvarez from Earth. Every scientific resource we have is at your disposal, Dr. Nakamura. Find us a way to fight these beings. As the meeting concluded, Chen found herself alone with Nakamura in the Horizons conference room. Can we win this? She asked quietly. Nakamura's expression was grim. Conventional victory? No. Their technology is beyond ours by centuries, maybe millennia. But he paused, his eyes distant as his brilliant mind worked through possibilities. Their perception of our universe as incorrect suggests they're bound by certain rules. If we can understand those rules, then we might find a way to exploit them, Chen finished. The next 3 weeks were a flurry of activity across human space. Colonial ships were retrofitted for combat, civilian vessels were converted to evacuation transports, and emergency protocols were enacted across all 57 systems. Earth's weapons research facilities worked around the clock, seeking any advantage against the Voidborn. Meanwhile, Dr. Nakamura led a team of the Confederation's top scientists in studying the Voidborn vessels. Using remote probes and quantum scanning technology, they pieced together a rudimentary understanding of how the aliens manipulated dimensional physics. They exist simultaneously in multiple states of reality, Nakamura explained during a briefing 5 days before the human fleet was set to engage. Their ships aren't just crossing between dimensions. They're partially phased into several at once. That's why they appear to flicker and shift. How does that help us? Asked Admiral Katri. It means they're vulnerable, Nakamura replied. Maintaining that state requires enormous energy. If we can disrupt their dimensional anchoring, we might be able to force them fully into our reality, where our weapons would be effective. As the deadline approached, humanity's fleet assembled at the edge of the Epsilon Eridani system. 20,000 ships, from massive dreadnoughts to agile corvettes, formed a defensive perimeter around the most populous human worlds. It was the largest military force ever assembled in human history, representing the combined might of every colony and Earth itself. Commander Chen stood on the bridge of the Horizon, now designated as the fleet's command ship. The view screen showed the assembled armada, a testament to human determination and ingenuity. Yet, as she looked at the tactical display showing the approaching Voidborn forces, now numbering in the hundreds of thousands, she couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. All ships, battle stations, she ordered, her voice carrying to every vessel in the fleet. Prepare to engage on my mark. The Voidborn ships approached, their strange geometries more menacing than ever. Behind them, the dimensional rift had grown to an enormous size, a wound in the fabric of reality itself. They're hailing us, reported Lieutenant Wells. Chen nodded. On screen, the Voidborn appeared once more, its geometric patterns shifting more rapidly than before. Your time has expired, it stated. Your resistance is noted but will not alter the outcome. The correction begins now. As the transmission ended, the Voidborn fleet accelerated toward the human defensive line. Chen took a deep breath, steadying herself for what was to come. All ships, engage at will. For Earth, for humanity, for our existence itself. 20,000 human vessels surged forward to meet the oncoming storm, weapons powered and shields at maximum. The battle for humanity's right to exist had begun. The first volley from the human fleet seemed to pass straight through the leading edge of Voidborn vessels. Chen watched in dismay as advanced plasma torpedoes and quantum-tipped missiles, weapons capable of reducing a moon to rubble, simply disappeared into the shifting forms of the enemy ships. Direct hits, no effect, reported Captain Zhao, his voice tight with tension. It's as if they're not fully here. They're not, Dr. Nakamura confirmed, analyzing readings from his station. They're maintaining a partial phase state, existing between our dimension and theirs. Our weapons are passing through the portions of their ships that exist in another reality. The Voidborn response was immediate and devastating. Beams of energy that seemed to bend and twist through dimensions lanced out from their vessels, striking a dozen human ships simultaneously. Where the beams hit, matter simply ceased to exist. No explosions, no debris, just perfect spherical voids where warships had been moments before. They're not destroying our ships, Nakamura whispered in horror. They're erasing them from reality itself. Chen gripped the command rail, her knuckles white. All ships, evasive pattern delta. Concentrate fire on a single target. Let's see if concentrated energy can affect them. The human fleet responded with admirable discipline, hundreds of ships focusing their firepower on a single Voidborn vessel. For a moment, it seemed to work. The alien ship's outline became more solid, more present in their reality. It's working, Zhao exclaimed. The energy concentration is forcing it to fully manifest in our dimension. Before they could celebrate, the targeted Voidborn ship simply multiplied. Where one vessel had been, there were suddenly 5, each identical to the original. What the hell just happened? Chen demanded. Nakamura's fingers flew across his console. Dimensional duplication. They're pulling versions of themselves from parallel realities. Our attack didn't damage them. It just gave them a reason to bring in reinforcements. The battle quickly devolved into chaos. For every Voidborn ship the humans managed to fully phase into reality and destroy, 5 more appeared to take its place. The human fleet, for all its firepower and tactical prowess, was fighting an enemy that could simply sidestep the laws of physics. An hour into the engagement, nearly 3,000 human ships had been erased from existence. The Voidborn fleet pressed forward, methodically advancing toward the inner colonies. Commander, called Lieutenant Wells, we've lost contact with the Themis and Athena battle groups. The 7th colony world is gone. What do you mean gone? Chen asked, though she feared she already knew the answer. The planet itself has been erased. There's nothing there but empty space. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. The 7th colony had been home to over 2 billion people. We can't win this conventionally, Chen said quietly. She turned to Nakamura. Doctor, what about your research? Is there anything we can use? Nakamura had been working feverishly at his station, correlating data from the battle. Maybe, he said, not looking up. I've been analyzing the dimensional frequencies they use to maintain their phase state. There's a pattern to it, a mathematical constant that governs their transitions between realities. Can we disrupt it? Chen asked. Not exactly, Nakamura replied, but we might be able to replicate it. If we can phase our own ships partially out of reality, their dimensional weapons might pass through us as well. How quickly can you implement this? Nakamura grimaced. It would require modifying the quantum field generators on every ship. Hours, at minimum. And there's a significant risk. If we calculate wrong, we could phase our ships into a hostile dimension or tear them apart at the quantum level. Chen looked at the tactical display. At the current rate of attrition, The human fleet would be completely destroyed in less than 5 hours. We're out of options, Doctor. Make it happen. As Nakamura's team worked to distribute the necessary modifications to the fleet, Chen reorganized their defensive strategy. The remaining ships formed concentric rings around Earth and the most populous colonies, buying time with their very existence. 3 hours later, with the human fleet reduced to just over 12,000 ships, Nakamura finally announced, "The modifications are ready. All remaining ships have implemented the quantum phase protocols." Chen took a deep breath. "All ships, activate Nakamura protocol on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Mark." Across the fleet, the newly calibrated quantum field generators engage. Chen felt a strange sensation sweep through her body, as if every atom was momentarily uncertain of its place in the universe. On the view screen, the human ships took on the same flickering, shifting appearance as the void-borne vessels. "Status," Chen demanded. "Phase state achieved." Nakamura confirmed. "We're existing at approximately 67% in our home dimension, 33% phased into the same adjacent dimensions the void-borne are utilizing. All ships, engage the enemy. Let's see if we can fight on their terms now." The gamble paid off. Initially, the void-borne dimensional weapons now passed through human ships without effect, just as conventional weapons had passed through them earlier. For the first time, the battle approached something resembling parity. Then, the void-borne adapted. Their vessels began emitting pulses of energy that disrupted the human ship's phase state, forcing them back into full reality before erasing them from existence. "They're countering our countermeasure," Zhao reported grimly. "We're losing ships again." Nakamura looked up from his console, his eyes wide with sudden inspiration. "The dimensional constant," he said. "We've been trying to match their phase state exactly, but what if we deliberately mismatch it?" "Explain," Chen ordered. "The void-borne exist across a specific set of dimensional frequencies. If we shift our frequencies to deliberately clash with theirs, create interference patterns in the dimensional fabric itself." Chen immediately grasped the implication. It could disrupt their ability to maintain their own phase state. "How quickly can you implement this?" "Minutes for our ship. Perhaps an hour to distribute to the fleet." Chen made an instant decision. "Do it for the horizon first. If it works, we'll distribute to every surviving ship." Nakamura immediately began recalibrating the quantum field generators. The bridge crew worked in tense silence, all too aware that their survival hung in the balance. "Ready," Nakamura announced minutes later. "Engaging modified phase state now." Once again, Chen felt that strange sensation of quantum uncertainty, but stronger this time, almost nauseating. The view screen showed the space around them rippling like water disturbed by a stone. "Target the nearest void-borne vessel," Chen ordered. "All weapons, fire." The Horizon's weapons batteries unleashed their fury. As the energy beams struck the void-borne ship, something unprecedented happened. Instead of passing through or being absorbed, the weapons created a cascading reaction where they hit. The alien vessel began to distort, its form stretching and compressing as if caught between conflicting realities. "It's working," Nakamura exclaimed. "The dimensional interference is destabilizing their phase state." The void-borne ship's form continued to warp until, with a flash of light that seemed to bend in impossible ways, it collapsed in on itself and vanished. "What happened to it?" Chen asked. "The dimensional stress forced it fully into one reality or another," Nakamura explained. "Either back to its home dimension or fully into ours where it couldn't maintain cohesion." "Distribute the modifications to all remaining ships immediately," Chen ordered. "Priority to our frontline vessels." As the new configuration spread throughout the fleet, the tide of battle began to shift. Human ships, though vastly outnumbered, could now effectively combat the void-borne. Each successful hit destabilized the enemy vessels, forcing them to retreat to their home dimension or risk destruction. The void-borne, seemingly confused by this unexpected development, began to withdraw, pulling back toward the dimensional rift that had brought them to human space. They're retreating, Zhao reported, disbelief evident in his voice. No, Nakamura countered, studying his readings. They're regrouping. The rift is becoming more active. Energy levels are increasing exponentially. Chen frowned. What does that mean? Before Nakamura could answer, the dimensional rift expanded dramatically, its edges pulsing with chaotic energy. From within emerged a single massive vessel, dwarfing even the largest void-borne ships they'd encountered so far. Its form seemed more solid, more present in their reality than the others. That's their command ship, Nakamura said quietly, and it's fully manifesting in our dimension. The massive vessel emitted a pulse of energy that swept across space. Where it passed, human ships lost their modified phase state, snapping back fully into normal spacetime. They've neutralized our countermeasure, Nakamura reported grimly. They must have analyzed our technique and developed a counterfield. Chen watched as the massive void-borne command ship advanced, methodically erasing human vessels from existence. Their brief advantage had evaporated, and with it, much of their remaining fleet. Options, Doctor? Chen asked, fighting to keep desperation from her voice. Nakamura was silent for a long moment, his expression shifting from despair to determination, and finally to grim resolve. One possibility, he said quietly. But it's extreme. We're beyond cautious options, Chen replied. What are you thinking? Their command ship has fully manifested in our dimension to neutralize our phase state, Nakamura explained. That means it's currently vulnerable to conventional weapons, but it's too massive and well-shielded for our remaining firepower to affect it significantly. Then what? We reverse the process, Nakamura said. Instead of trying to phase ourselves out of reality, we force them further into it, all the way into it. If we can create a dimensional resonance cascade, understanding dawned on Chen's face. We could collapse the rift entirely. Yes, but the energy release would be... Nakamura hesitated. Catastrophic. We'd have to trigger it from within the rift itself. Chen looked at the tactical display. The human fleet was down to fewer than 8,000 ships, and losses were mounting by the minute. Earth itself was now directly threatened. The horizon can do it, she said quietly. If we overload our quantum field generators while inside the rift, would that trigger your cascade? Nakamura nodded slowly. Yes, Commander. But anyone on board would. I know, Chen interrupted. Begin the preparations. Captain Zhao, set a course for the rift. All other ships are to withdraw to minimum safe distance. Commander, Zhao protested. There must be another way. If Dr. Nakamura had one, he would have suggested it. Chen replied calmly. I'm not ordering anyone to stay aboard. Prepare evacuation protocols for all non-essential personnel. In the end, despite Chen's order, not a single crew member left the horizon. They worked together, converting the ship's power systems to channel every available joule into the quantum field generators for one massive pulse. As the horizon approached the dimensional rift, the remaining human fleet engaged in a desperate holding action, drawing the void-borne forces away to give Chen's ship a clear path. All power systems converted, Nakamura reported. We'll have one shot at this. Chen nodded, surveying the bridge one last time. It's been an honor serving with all of you. For humanity. For humanity, echoed across the bridge. The horizon plunged into the dimensional rift, the fabric of reality itself seeming to stretch and tear around them. Strange lights and impossible geometries surrounded the ship as it penetrated deeper into the space between dimensions. We're inside the rift, Zhao reported, his voice strained. Hull integrity at 62%, and falling. The dimensional stresses are tearing us apart. We only need to hold together long enough to trigger the cascade, Chen said. Dr. Nakamura status. Ready, Commander, Nakamura replied, his finger poised above the activation control. On your order. Chen took one last look at the view screen, which showed the swirling dimensional chaos surrounding them. Somewhere beyond that chaos was Earth, and all of human space, trillions of lives depending on their sacrifice. "Execute," she commanded. Nakamura activated the overloaded quantum field generators. For a brief moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, reality itself seemed to convulse around them. The horizon began to vibrate at a quantum level, its very atoms resonating with the dimensional frequencies of the rift. "It's working," Nakamura shouted over the increasing rumble. "The cascade is building." The view screen showed the rift beginning to collapse, its edges folding inward like a closing iris. Beyond, the massive Voidborn command ship was being pulled back toward the rift, unable to escape the growing gravitational forces. "Hull integrity critical," Zhao reported calmly. "Structural failure imminent." Chen closed her eyes as the ship began to break apart around them. Her last thoughts were of Earth, of humanity, and of the future they had saved. The dimensional cascade expanded outward in a sphere of reality-warping energy, engulfing the Voidborn fleet. Ships caught in the effect were compressed into singularities before vanishing entirely. The command ship, despite its enormous size and power, was drawn inexorably back into the collapsing rift. And then, with a silent flash that momentarily outshone the stars themselves, the rift closed completely. Where hundreds of thousands of Voidborn ships had been, there was nothing. Where the TSS Horizon and her brave crew had made their final stand, empty space remained. The surviving human vessels, just over 7,000 of the original 20,000, maintained their positions, sensors scanning for any sign of the enemy. Minutes passed, then hours, with no new rifts appearing, no Voidborn ships emerging from the depths of space. Aboard the TSS Defiant, now the fleet's acting command ship, Admiral Khetri received the sensor reports with solemn acknowledgement. "They're gone," he confirmed to the assembled fleet. Commander Chen and the Horizon succeeded. Throughout human space, the news spread. Against impossible odds, humanity had survived an encounter with beings from beyond their reality itself. The cost had been staggering: 13,000 ships lost, billions of lives erased on the 7th colony. But extinction had been averted. In the days that followed, Dr. Nakamura's research team analyzed the data collected during the battle. What they discovered both alarmed and fascinated them. The dimensional cascade had not merely closed the rift, but had fundamentally altered the quantum signature of human space. The very fabric of reality had been strengthened against further incursions. "It's as if the universe itself learned from the attack," one scientist remarked. "The dimensional constants have shifted just enough to make it significantly harder for anything to phase between realities in this sector of space." Whether the Voidborn would return remained an open question, but humanity would be ready if they did. Research into dimensional physics accelerated, with new defensive technologies emerging within months. The fleet was rebuilt, stronger than before, with every ship equipped with quantum field generators based on Nakamura's designs. And at the exact coordinates where the Horizon had made its final stand, a memorial was established, a quantum beacon that pulsed with the same frequency as the ship's final transmission. Its message, broadcast in every known language and mathematical cipher, was simple: "We are humanity. We exist. And we will defend our reality." Throughout the galaxy, other species took notice, the species that had fought beings from beyond reality itself. And one was not to be underestimated. Some sought alliances, others maintained cautious distance, but all recognized a fundamental truth. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology or its numbers, but its relentless determination to exist on its own terms. In the vast, infinite multiverse, that was a force to be reckoned with.